her prior husband because I was learning some things. It was just after a while of maybe 18 months or more
of us being together.
Now we're together. I began to say, all right, enough is enough. Then I'll use an example. Imagine I was, with the man was saying, now imagine I was talking about my ex. How would you feel?
But my thing is, but I have to deal, and this is what I would say to him, but I have to deal with your ex. You have children by a woman that's like, y'all gonna be family forever. Even though there's no issues, there's no squad. No, please don't get me wrong. There is love and respect amongst us. Please, I want to clarify that. But at the end of the day, this woman mothered your children. She is still around. It's not like I met your children when they were babies, and they were grown when I met them. You got to understand, it's like, you're talking about a man that you would never see or meet. I have to see and build a relationship with your ex-wife and the mother of your children. Hey, it is us.
All right.
Again, we are here. We are so grateful for you to be here. Last week was part 3 of the capacities to love, and we discussed that raindrop capacity. Do you have the ability to connect with your spouse in the moment, to show that empathy, that intimacy, and that deep concern? I know for William and I, it took us years to be able to develop that capacity to love, and we talked about that. Make sure, if you haven't, check out part 3, a raindrop capacity to love. But as we continue on in this 11-part series, today we're going to be talking about that puddle capacity to love. And so what do we mean by that? Yes, we're going to definitely break this down. As we talk about and use metamorphically the different bodies of water, that raindrop is the smallest, and the puddle is that next size body of water. Right. Now, as we know, a puddle can vary in its size and in its density. And the reason why is because puddles are created from external factors. They're not necessarily natural or come from the earth and how it was created. Right. Puddles are formed either from after a rainfall, after snow or ice melts, or after a spill. Right. And so we liken that unto the fact that if there is a puddle in your life, there is an external factor that's creating a problem or a situation that you and your spouse have to address and deal with. And so for William and I, for instance, whenever it rains, snows, whatever, we get a puddle right on our porch. And that puddle caused major problems earlier on, where we had to fix our porch. That water, there was separation on our porch. That water would get down into the basement. It caused moisture in the basement. That caused mildew. And so when we called a famous company to come and fix it, they wanted to charge us $4,000 or more. Told us we had to get a humidifier, that they had a special machine to get moisture out of someone's basement. And so, of course, you always get a second opinion. And we got a second opinion and come to find out that the issue had nothing to do with our basement. The issue started externally with the porch, because the concrete began to separate from the brick on the porch, and it was causing water to get inside the basement. And so we want to let you know that with your puddle capacity to love, you got to have the skills and the ability to be able to address those problems at hand. Because if you don't address those problems, what's going to happen, they're going to get larger, and the problem is going to get worse.
For example,
go ahead.
For example, one of the things that one of my biggest things was
And excuse William, he doesn't feel good, but go ahead.
Yes, please excuse me. One of my biggest things is dress it right now. Let's nip it in the bud, because you don't want to give that thought time to fester and to grow into something that's not necessary. Oftentimes, for me, if we address what's in the room, what's that cliche? The monkey, the pink elephant. The pink elephant in the room.
Yes.
Right now, let's deal with it right now. Let's get it out the way, so that when we go to bed tonight, we will have some type of peace, some type of resolve for that particular issue. And sometimes that brought a lot of issues, because my wife is a processor. Process what?
I gotta process my thoughts. I gotta process my feelings, and he be wanting me to respond right there in the moment. And I would give him these blank stares, and he would give these blank stares right back at me, and then I would actually see how I would look. Like, he would mirror me, and I'm like, he was like, "Well, are you gonna say something?" And I don't know what to say. I'm thinking, I don't have a response right now. My brain doesn't work that quickly. But I mean, there's definitely a biblical reference to addressing the problems before you go to bed. You don't want to go to sleep when you're angry. Absolutely. But what if you are married to someone who's a processor, who has to think about it, who has to formulate their thoughts and their opinions, especially for me, because one of the things that you don't share, William, is that I never really wanted to argue with you.
But that was good. That was one of the characteristics that my wife had that I love, and I actually thank God for that, because a lot of people like to argue, and so my wife's, in her attempt to not argue, a lot of times she did not say what was on her mind at the particular time, because I probably wouldn't have liked it, or I probably would have added fuel to whatever was going on already.
I wanted to respect him, and I felt like it takes two to tango, and it takes two to have an argument, and that you can actually quench the fire if you keep your mouth shut. And although he wanted me to respond in the moment, anybody can give a quick response. But what is going to happen in the long run if you just fire off at the mouth? On one end, I wasn't responding because I'm a processor and I'm a thinker. Two, I don't think that quickly in the moment, but also there was a deeper desire that was more sound and spiritual and mature. It was like, I don't want to argue with my husband, because this can go all night. He alone can go hours. Even if I'm not saying anything, even if I'm just sitting there, he can go on for hours and hours and hours. Can you just imagine the few times that I said something, it took us on a tailspin, and it was a whole nother hour. And I remember us, talking with a couple, not counseling them, but they were another power couple also who does couples work. And I remember saying that they argued all night until like 7:00 in the morning. And I was like, y'all did a whole shift. I said people went to work and came home, y'all was still arguing, right? And we gotta have that balance and understand our spouses. Is like, yes, you can address the situation in the moment, which is good, but that's why sometimes it takes us being together for a period of time to know how to address those puddles, to know how to have that capacity of a puddle to love. Because in the beginning, we didn't have that. It has taken us years to get to the point that we're able to address the situation and go to bed in peace. Go ahead, sweetheart.
Right. Another thing, I kind of forgot what I was getting ready to say. Excuse me. But that's a whole nother piece. But a lot of times we have to recognize trauma. But my wife has trauma and triggers. And I didn't know what to say. I did not know what to do. And a lot of times through our conversation, she would interrupt. And some of you are familiar with that. Some of you do that right now. I'm talking about on both sides. This is not a female or a male thing.
We just interrupt.
They interrupt. And then when you interrupt, when she would interrupt, I would lose my thought. And then the more I got interrupted, the longer it felt like the process went. And at some point, I would just shut down.
But then it was so crazy because what do you want me to do? You have to understand the position that I was in. I didn't want to argue. I always didn't have a response. And when I had a response, he would be like, I couldn't, like, you made me forget what I was going to say. I was so stuck. It's like, damned if I do, damned if I don't. He wants me to respond, but I'm not going to respond, or I'm unable to respond for the reasons I've already listed. And then if I do respond, that's a problem. So it's a problem if I respond. It's a problem if I don't respond. And you can just imagine the type of arguments that we had. And it just took us years going through that near divorce and just really just having to face ourselves to be like, we both had issues that we brought to the relationship. And then we had to learn how to communicate. And the way we communicate with each other that's the most effective at this season in our lives is that, first of all, we stopped judging one another.
Oh, come on. That part right there. Come on now. We judge the other person. When you do that, you're just messing the situation up. You're making it worse. Do not judge. Listen to learn.
And listen to understand. Like, we have a saying, do we communicate to convince or do we communicate to convey? And William used to communicate with me to try to convince me to stop thinking the way I thought or the way I saw something, to see it from his perspective.
That's the wrong way of thinking.
And I'm just like, but it's...
Why don't you think this way?
And I'm like, but you married me because I was a free thinking individual. It was something about the way I thought, my creativity, and what I brought to the table that you loved and enjoyed. And then all of a sudden you don't like it. All of a sudden you don't like the way I think. You want me to think the way you think. Then why am I here? I'm a helpmeet.
That's the wrong way to think.
Right.
They say things like that.
Right. If I'm a helpmeet, I'm going to automatically bring a different perspective to the conversation, and you're supposed to be open enough to receive that perspective. Not that it's right or wrong, it's just different. And I remember reading a book, Women's Way, and I know I'm not remembering the name of it. You ladies remember this quote where it says different does not mean deviant. Just because I think different or I am different doesn't mean that I'm deviant. Doesn't mean that I'm coming against you. Doesn't mean that I'm tearing down my house. Doesn't mean like I'm doing any of those things. And so you got to stop judging, and then you got to stop slinging accusations. And I think for us, you judged me more than I judged you, but I think we equally accused each other of stuff.
I think what it was. I think what it was is, and I always say this, it was our level of expectations. That will destroy, especially with us men. We have an expectation that if I could do this for you, if I could be calm, if I can listen, if I can emotionally support you, then I expect you to do the same thing. And that mindset, that paradigm becomes a deal breaker in a relationship. I'm telling you right now to let that go. Because there are some things that I am better at, some things that I have to do that my wife may not necessarily have. That does not mean that I need to go pack my bags and find somebody else who can give me what I think I
what you
deserve.
think you need. The sayings is not green. The grass is not greener on the other side.
That's right. That's right.
And that younger model that you think you're going to get, that person's
Or
going
older
to age.
model.
Right. There's always going to be something that you're going to have to deal with. And the grass is actually greener where you water it.
Say that. Oh, that was a good one. Come on
Grass
now.
is greener where you water it. It reminds us of our rose bush out in the front yard. It's
Beautiful
like we didn't get the 4 blooms that we could have gotten this past season because we were going through my health issues where we didn't water it the way we needed to water it. We got it pruned, and we're going to make sure that we water it the way we need to come next spring.
Absolutely.
And so we just got to make sure we got to take care of our yards. We got to take care of that rose bush or whatever flowers that you have in your front or backyard. You have to water and take care of your marriage.
You have to.
And you got to make sure that you clear all of the muck and mire out of your waters to make sure that they are sacred. It took us years to have sacred waters. It took us, again, hurt, pain, near divorce, physical separation. Oh, I can go on and on. And we will share some of those things as we go along. But what is your puddle capacity to love? Go ahead, William. I'm sorry.
I forgot what I'm saying again.
But I wasn't interrupted. It's not my fault.
I know that's just me. I got a lot going on.
Yeah, and we just want to make sure that we share with you these perspectives so that you can self-reflect. So you can look at these with your girlfriends, with your spouse.
Oh, I remembered.
Go ahead. No, go ahead, William.
Another thing that we need to do is get other people out of our relationships.
Ooh.
Some of the people that are in our relationships and dictating the course of our marriage, they're not even alive. They are dead and gone. These values and these family values that has been instilled in us is affecting our relationship with the person we are in the right now with. All of these different points of views and opinions that we have accumulated over the years from different sources, whether it be family, friends, TV. Come on, talk about it.
No, think about it. I remember, William, when we first got together, I was a widow. My first husband, maybe about 2 years. He had been dead for 2 years. And I would just talk about him. And William was like, that man's not here. I'm here. Don't bring him up. And he wasn't saying it in a disrespectful way because he always respected my first marriage. He knew that my first husband married the little girl in me and William married the woman, even though there's still, I had to grow and there's more growth for me, just like any and everyone else. But he was like, whoo, that man kind of prepared you. He was like, that's my man, that's my brother, because
right. he went through something.
He went through some stuff and got you ready for me. But nevertheless, he was still like, don't bring him up. And it wasn't that I was expecting William to do what my first husband did, but I guess just from the other person's perspective,
point of reference,
you just don't want to even hear about what happened in the other marriage or the other relationship, because it's like, I'm not that man. Let me be who I am. Go ahead.
Right. Well, it wasn't like I said that from the very beginning, because it was interesting in the very beginning to hear the dynamics of that particular relationship because that she had with her prior husband, because I was learning some things. It was just after a while of maybe 18 months or more
of us being together.
Now we together. I began to say, all right, enough is enough. Then I'll use an example. Imagine I was, with the man was saying, now imagine I was talking about my ex. How would you feel?
But my thing is, I have to and this is what I would say to him, but I have to deal with your ex. You have children by a woman that's like, y'all gonna be family forever. Even though there's no issues, there's no squad. No, please don't get me wrong. There is love and respect amongst us. Please, I want to clarify that. But at the end of the day, this woman mothered your children. She is still around. It's not like I met your children when they were babies and they were grown when I met them. So you got to understand, it's like, you're talking about a man that you would never see or meet. I have to see and build a relationship with your ex-wife and the mother of your children. There's always a different side of the coin where will you be able to deal with what I have to deal with if the shoe was on the other foot? There's always another perspective.
There's always
different sides. And how you know that you've grown and matured, that you are maintaining your sacred waters, is when that you can see the other person's side. Right?
Absolutely.
We so appreciate you in this conversation. Don't forget, you can check out the article on Medium.
Check it out.
Yes, if you are a reader, we definitely bring a different perspective on the YouTube videos versus the articles. Don't forget, we have journals on Amazon. One way that you can maintain your sacred waters in your marriage is if you journal and color some stuff out.
Actually works.
It does work. You talk about releasing your thoughts and your feelings. If you release those raw thoughts and those raw emotions in your journal, get it out. By the time you talk to your spouse, you can have that rational conversation. I truly promote the art of journaling and the art of coloring, because it's a way for you to engage in self-care, and it's a way for you to work through what you need to work through before you bring stuff to your spouse. There's a link below for both the Medium articles and where you can purchase the coloring books and journals on Amazon. We appreciate you. Don't forget to comment, subscribe, follow, put your notification bell on, and all that good stuff. All right. God bless you.